Hi guys, thanks for joining me. I'm experimenting with a new angle today. I wanted to have this as a sort of backdrop. I've obviously got the window there, which is slightly problematic potentially, so I'm hoping that it's going to come out all right, so fingers crossed. I'm also filming at a time of day that I don't normally film. It's late afternoon, and I usually do my makeup and my hair immediately before I film, because I generally film in the morning for sort of sit down videos like this. And so if I'm looking a bit ragged around the edges, I apologise, but it's about 4:30 and I'm probably not looking as fresh as I was this morning when I put my makeup on. Also, thirdly, before we get started on the actual content of the video, disclaimer, my eyebrows, I've had them microbladed earlier this week and they are still in the very dark, sort of slightly scabby stage. So if you think I look like Spock, as my husband does, he keeps coming up to me going, live long and prosper, very amusing, just forgive me, that is the reason that my eyebrows are slightly darker than they normally are. Right, all that having been said, welcome to the second in my alphabet series of subjects that I just want to talk about and thought I'd get some discussion going. The first one I made last week was A is for anti-aging, A is for aging and anti-aging, and I really enjoyed filming it, and you all seem to enjoy it. I got loads of good feedback from that, so thank you very much for that. So this week's video B is for babies, and I wanted to talk specifically about my situation. For those who are new viewers, I am married with one son, William, who is 18, and I wanted to sort of talk about only children, the pros and cons of having an only child, my experience of it, reasons behind it, that sort of thing. So let's start with, let's rewind to the decision to have children, or to attempt to have a child, because not everybody can have children, can they? You know, it's not always as easy as that. My husband, Ashley, was very ambivalent at best about having children. Had it been left to him, I think we probably wouldn't have done. Had the decision been left to him, I mean, rather than, I mean, obviously you can't have a child by yourself, can you? Well, you can, actually, these days, so I don't know why I said that. But yeah, he was very ambivalent. He wasn't bothered either way. I think if I'd left the decision up to him, it probably would have been no. And I have to say, I never got those sort of desperately maternal instincts, but I kind of based my decision on whether I wanted children or not I thought, I don't want to get 20 years down the line and really regret not having done it. And that was really how my thinking played out. So we decided to go ahead and try. I had William when I was 31. I'm going to probably talk a little bit about the traumas of birth. So if you're not into that sort of thing, probably best to click off now. I won't be offended, feel free to do that. I had a really easy pregnancy. I enjoyed being pregnant. I worked right up until I think about a week and a half before I had William full time, and it was all very easy and nice and enjoyable. The birth, not so much. It was quite traumatic. I had a forceps delivery in the end. I had all the drugs. I had a birth plan to have all the blimmin' drugs. My thinking really was, do you go and have a tooth out without having an anaesthetic? No. So why would I want to squeeze a baby out of my tooth without having an epidural? Doesn't make sense to me. So yes, I did have all the drugs in all the shapes and all the sizes, including the epidural, which was bloody marvellous. I wish I could have continued that epidural for the first sort of 6 weeks of William's life, because recovering was bloody agony. I had an awful lot of stitches. A very traumatic delivery, which was forceps. It wasn't fun, it wasn't nice. Ashley wasn't there for it, which was entirely his choice. I absolutely supported that. I think there's so much pressure on fathers to be at the birth these days, and I feel I really didn't mind him not being there. Frankly, given the choice, I wouldn't have been there for the birth either. I mean, I know some people say they have a wonderful birth experience. Mine just wasn't. It was blood and guts and your legs open and a procession of people coming into the room. There's nothing nice about it. I didn't enjoy it. Anyway, William was born. Shortly after that, they decided they'd lost some swabs and they thought they might have left them inside me and could they have a quick look for them. So I said I wasn't that keen on that because I was starting to get some feeling back by then. We've gone off at a tangent, haven't we? Yes, we've gone off at a tangent. So they sent me down to X-ray at the other end of the hospital. I had to leave my newborn baby upstairs in maternity and I was wheeled down to X-ray at the other end of the hospital to be X-rayed to see if the swabs were still in there. They X-rayed my stomach. I hadn't eaten the bloody things. I didn't realise this till we got back up to maternity and the doctors in maternity had a look at the x-rays and they said they've x-rayed your stomach and they were just about to take me all the way back down to the other end of the hospital to be x-rayed again in the right area and they found the swabs that were missing, so that was good. But yes, that was all a bit unpleasant. And anyway, suffice to say, I'd torn badly. I'd also had a episiotomy, lots of stitches, all very uncomfortable. That was awful. My point in all of this, I also then breastfed because of pressure, really. Given the choice, I probably would have preferred to bottle feed, but they didn't really at that point. Certainly it was frowned upon, let's just say. There wasn't the freedom of choice that perhaps there is these days. I honestly don't know. I don't know if they try and persuade you to breastfeed still or not. But I managed to breastfeed for 2 weeks and I had mastitis twice during that time, so I got really ill with that. And the point of all of this explanation is that the first 6 weeks or 2 months of William's life were pretty hard for me health-wise. Also, Ashley was working. Sorry, just rewind when I said Ashley didn't come to the birth. He was in the hospital. He was in the corridor outside the room. And he did pop in and out while I was in labour. My sister-in-law at the time was with me the whole time, so I did have someone with me. But Ashley was working away a lot at that time. And so he was actually away. He went to Ireland to work the day after William was born, and he wasn't there when William came home from hospital. My mum came and stayed, and yeah, we agreed. I mean, he would have stayed home if I pressed him to do so, but I was, you know, it was a time when we needed the money. The money was quite important, and obviously I was on maternity leave. I wasn't getting loads of maternity pay. I'd only been in my job a while. Money was quite an issue in those days. So yeah, he was working away a lot. He was away a lot of weekends. It just all felt incredibly difficult. Suffice to say, I did not really enjoy the first couple of months of Will's life. I desperately missed work. I went back to work, only part-time, 2 or 3 days a week. 3 days a week, I think, when Will was 5 months old, and that gave me some balance, and I'd felt so cut off from the world. I really wasn't. I found it boring. People don't say that, do they? The grinding tedium of the days. I've never clock watched so much to wait for bedtime as waiting for those hours to tick round for Ashley to come in from work, or for it to be 7 o'clock and William would go to bed. He was also the world's worst sleeper. He was not I'm aware this sounds like a bit of a horror story. It wasn't. I've got lots of lovely memories of Will's sort of toddlerhood, at least, probably not babyhood, no. But yeah, at the time it just felt so hard, and you're meant to be, you know, absolutely joyous with this new baby, and I was just bored and lonely and fed up. When I went back to work when he was 5 months old, that really gave me some balance, and that was great, and that's when I sort of started to enjoy motherhood. But I did have this ongoing issue until William was 2. He never slept through the night at all, so I was really, really sleep deprived as well. Ashley wasn't the type to get up in the night for the baby, so that was all down to me. But I did find it very traumatic, and I think that really, that in its entirety, made me probably not want to have any more kids. I never ever seriously thought about having any more, and looking back, I can't even put my finger on it. It certainly wasn't a decision not to have any more. It was just never a consideration. It was never an option. Sorry, I've just kicked the tripod. It just was not an option for me. And I think this if Ashley had pushed me, again, if Ashley had been keen and said, I'd really like to have another child, perhaps the thing would be different. But he was, you know, perhaps now would be different, but he was really not bothered either way. Again, he loves William. He has the best relationship with William now. They're very close, father and son. They love the same sort of things. They also look absolutely identical. If any of you have seen William on my previous vlogs when he used to be in the videos, you will know that he's just absolutely the spitting image of Ashley, and they're very, very similar, and they have a lovely relationship. They always have had. Ashley was probably better with William as a small child than I was, to be honest. He's a great dad. But yeah, there was never any serious conversation or consideration to having another child. I think by the time William was 2 and slept through the night, and I got used to being a mother and was able to deal with things a little bit better, the thought of going back to square one with another baby and having those sleepless nights again just filled me with absolute horror. And of course you do get the people who will say to you, from when your child's about 1, people think it's okay to go, so about time for number 2 then, are you thinking about number 2 next? And I had that, I'm not joking, for about 5 or 6 years. Doesn't actually bother me, because I'm quite an open person, and other people's opinions don't affect me too badly. I wouldn't be doing YouTube if that was the case. But yeah, it didn't bother me, but it's quite an intrusive question for some people. I mean, some people might be struggling to have another one. Some people might not be able to have another one. And a lot of people probably don't want to discuss that with virtual strangers, who are some of the people who would say to me, oh, time for the next one. And I remember a cashier in Boots saying to me, oh, you'll be having number 2 soon. I thought, no, but probably only making conversation. But yeah, it was never ever a consideration for us. And I know my mum, particularly at the time, was quite sad about it. She would like me to have had another one, I think. And the reason for that is that she was an only child and didn't discover until she was over 60 that she had some brothers. That's a story for another day, possibly. But yeah, my mother was an only child, and I think she thought that it would be nice for William to grow up with brothers and sisters, and he hasn't done. He used to say when he was little that he would like a brother, never a sister. But if I asked him now, I have asked him in the last couple of years, does he feel like he missed out by not having a sibling? And he says no, he didn't. The only thing that I do feel a little bit sad about occasionally is that I know now for myself, dealing with, well, not dealing with, but as my parents get older and need more support, and when they've been ill and various things, having my brother there to deal with it with me is absolutely priceless, and I'm very, very grateful for that I have a brother. And I feel a little bit sad that William won't ever have that if, God forbid, he needs to be making tough decisions and dealing with stuff for us as we get older. So I think from that point of view, I wouldn't say regret it, but that would be my only regret for having an only child. If I thought about it that deeply, that would be the only thing that I would regret, I think. So the pluses of having an only child, God, have I really been talking for 15 minutes already? The pluses of having an only child, I think we've been able to travel with William a lot more than we would have done if we'd had more children, and we've given him more opportunities. I think financially it's a lot easier when you only have one child. The balance of that, of course, is you say, are they spoiled? I mean, we bought William a car. We probably wouldn't have been able to do that if we had more than one child. And so, is he actually spoiled? No, I don't think he is. I think he has a very comfortable life, and we do everything for him that we can, but we've also taught him the value of money and to appreciate what he has. I hope. I do think he does. But yeah, so I think in terms of opportunities and travelling and that sort of thing, we've been able to do a lot more of that than we would have done with more children. From a purely selfish point of view, I haven't had to dedicate my life for a very lengthy time to raising children. I'm not sure I would have been able to go back to work with more than one child, because we used paid childcare because we don't have anybody who could look after William while I was at work. So I'm not sure that it would have been financially viable to have put 2 children into paid childcare. Well, it wouldn't have been with what I was earning at the time. So we have been able to have our life as well, more so I think than we would have done with more children. I think that although they say it's easier to, once you've had one, to have 2, and I get that from a lot of points of view, but I think in a lot of ways as well, it's easier to keep your focus of you as a person. Does that make sense? I see a lot of people who I know vaguely, sort of acquaintances and old school mum friends and that sort of thing, who have 4 and 5 kids, and they are subsumed as a person by their children and the fact they are a mother. I quite often look at people like that and I think, what are you going to have left when your kids are all gone? They never seem to think of anything. They don't have any life outside their kids. Whatever they write on Facebook is about their children. They only talk about their children. They don't work outside the home, so they don't have anything of their own that they do that doesn't involve their kids. And I think whilst that's lovely and there's nothing wrong with it if that's what you want to do, I think it must be very difficult to keep hold of yourself as a person and your own interests and stuff. Perhaps that's just me and I'm very selfish. I am quite a selfish person. I like to do my own thing. I like to have my time to myself. So perhaps that's why I only have one child and that's why it works for me. And if I was a less selfish person, having more children would have worked for me. So it all turned out all right. Anyway, I have rambled about this subject for nearly 18 minutes. So I'm going to stop. I'm going to edit some of it out, so hopefully it's a bit shorter. Let's get some chat going in the comments. Tell me how many children you've got. What was the reason for that? Did you feel any pressure to have any more or less children? Did you enjoy being a mother when they were a baby, or did you actually hate it and feel that you couldn't say, God, this is awful, I wish I hadn't bothered? Just let me know your own experiences. I've talked to you about my experience, so I'd love to know everybody else's. So hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye.